All right, and welcome to everyone in the formation circle and the mentorship community. This is specifically a call we're doing as a part of the 5-month journey through the Live Free course and the Live Free mentorship community. In our last call, in the last time together, we looked at um, getting real about sin, focused on understand. Well, we looked briefly at how Scripture frames sin, but then understanding sin as the way us trying to solve our shame without God. And so this in today's call, I would like to go over some teaching on the three parts of ourselves, and I'm pulling this from Internal Family Systems. It's an approach to counseling and therapy that works under the concept that, and I'll get into this a little bit, but the concept that we are not one self, but rather we're a collection of parts. And depending on the circumstance or situation, we respond out of that one part. And obviously, these are man made ways of trying to articulate what's going on inside of ourselves. But I think they're very helpful and actually in connection with scripture as well as how we understand ourselves. I'm not actually going to get into the theology of it quite as much. I do have an article that I'll link as well. You may have seen it. I published here a couple months ago, fall of 2025. You may be watching this later. But I do believe that I guess this is just kind of an aside. Like I bump into some people who are hesitant to understand psychology and like how the human brain and human uh, person responds to life and to things in life. And there is, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's such a thing as called biblical counseling as opposed to other forms of counseling. Biblical counseling, on one hand, it's like, oh, I want to be biblical counseling, right? But biblical counseling is specifically a posture of counseling that says all we need is scripture to address the issues that we're dealing with. And I actually find that a bit concerning. For one thing, scripture is not a counseling handbook. That's not how scripture presents itself. Scripture is the message from God. And so it is something that shapes, grounds, and guides all of life. But it is not just like we don't study scripture to understand the effects of fast food on our bodies. In the same way, we don't study scripture to understand the effects of certain traumatic events and so forth in our lives or how addiction works. But we do get theological grounding and anchoring for how should we be treating our bodies, right? So is a full diet of McDonald's healthy for me? Well, scripture doesn't answer that because scripture is not trying to be our dietary handbook. But scripture does show us that we ought to glorify God with our bodies and with all that we eat and drink and do and so forth. And so it's going to guide the way as we learn about the negative effects of fast food, well, do we have a responsibility as stewards of the image of God? Do we have a responsibility of how we relate? Do we have a responsibility of relating to fast food in a certain way? Yeah. Scripture is going to shape that and it's going to guide us. Well, in the same way, understanding psychology and the way our person responds to situations in life is helpful and crucial. And scripture will guide us in that process and understanding how we should navigate what we learn regarding personhood and the brain and so forth. So internal family systems is one posture. There are one approach. There are many approaches to articulating and talking about the way that we respond to pain and shame and trauma. In a way, trauma, shame, and pain are all the same thing, and yet it's kind of telescoping things. You have shame, just kind of general shame. Well, even deeper than that is pain. Pain is going to bring shame. Not all shame is necessarily pain, but there is a sense of shame. And then there's trauma, which is most definitely pain and shame. Not all pain is necessarily trauma. And so I don't know if that is makes sense or not, but how does the human person respond to each of those? That's what part of what psychology is trying to understand is the study of mankind and how we mentally and emotionally respond to things in life. And I have in my book Live Free, I talked about a lot of what I'm going to go over this afternoon, but I use different language. I basically use the language of fig leaves, and I can't recall ever getting that from someplace. I'm sure I got that from somewhere. I'm trying to think if John Eldridge or Dan Allender used it. I don't remember getting that from some specific place. Rather, it was kind of my own. To be clear, I was definitely absorbing books and writing from other people, but also processing the story of man and how we, like the fig leaf, represents our attempt to cover ourselves. And so, in full transparency, I doubt I was original with that. I just don't remember one specific source where I learned that from. Otherwise, I would cite it. I should look in my own book to see if I have a footnote with it or not. But I use the language of fig leaf. And I think that's about it. I think I talked about like the thing we do to make ourselves feel better. And that is kind of a fig leaf. But it's been in more recent years. We are recording this in January of 26. And so it's been in the last 2 years that I've learned about internal family systems, IFS, internal family systems. And they put this model puts language even more specifically to that concept. And that's what I would like to go over here in this call, just to understand our stories in a better way. So, first of all, the framework that I think is really crucial when it comes to understanding sin, because so often we think of sin as specific behavior, and there's definitely sinful behaviors. But sin actually starts earlier than that. Sin is the attempt to fix shame on our own. In our previous call, I compared sin to a virus, like in the Old Testament where the Israelites were being bit by vipers and they were dying unless they saw the bronze serpent raised up. And then Paul links that unless you see the Son of Man raised up, then you also will die, and we will die in our sin. And so sin is this state of being that causes us to live life on our own instead of according to God's way. It's attempting to fix shame on our own. And so here is one of the clearest ways to just break down how does that happen practically. Okay, this is a nice concept. Oh, yes, I try to fix shame on my own. But how can you begin seeing in your everyday life when you're trying to fix shame on your own? Internal family systems works from a simple yet powerful belief, and that is that you are not oneself. You are a system of parts. And the three parts are the exile, the manager, and the firefighter. We'll go over those here today. And then we'll look briefly at what your true self is. The exile part is the wounded child. It's the part of you that feels unlovable, rejected, abandoned, the part that carries the loneliness, the shame, the fear of not being accepted. Most of the time it hides, but it does leak. And when it leaks, the manager takes over to make sure no one sees it. And so I'm just going to base this in my own story, and hopefully it there's enough overlap that you can begin to see it in yourself. I do just want to say, when we talk about the wounded child, wounds happen in a variety of ways. Wounds can happen when a father throws you against the wall in anger, right? Or maybe he's whipping you. Like, you did something and maybe it deserved a punishment, but not the whipping that you got. And he's whipping you relentlessly or whatever. Names, verbal attacks. There are wounds of action, and then there are also wounds of absence. This is a father who just never really knew what to say to their child, never said, I love you, maybe, or perhaps said, I love you, but when it came time for the child to learn how to drive a vehicle, wasn't really there, didn't really guide them through the process of, first of all, learning how to drive, and then learning how to figure out how to get your driver's license and prepare for the test and so forth. These are examples of people, stories that people have shared with me. So I know they're real life examples. I'm just trying to flesh out different ways children get wounded. For me, the wound happened in it wasn't abuse, and yet it was sort of also a wound of action. It was kind of interesting, but I had built a chair, and my best memory is I was probably 4, based on where we were living at the time. And like, I look at my 4-year-old now and think, man, did I really build the chair? Like, maybe I just found the chair and thought I don't know. But my memory was I had built a chair and I wanted to paint it and give it to mom. And I can remember being out in our garage and um, looking up at dad and telling him about my chair and wanting to be able to paint it. And I didn't have paint for it. I didn't know where paint was, so that I could give it to mom. And I just thought he would be excited. And the image that even to this day I see in my mind is dad. He was looking for something. He's like, yeah, that's nice, son. But he never looked at the chair and never helped me paint it. We never gave it to mom. And I have a distinct memory of a few years later when I was 6. We moved out of that house when I was 6. I remember seeing that chair sit in the garage. And I don't recall that it even came with us to the new house. It wasn't till I was 18 or 19 years old that I ever talked with anybody about that. But that image was so strong. And for years, it had me bound. In my youth, I would go to, my dad was a general contractor. And so I would go to work with dad sometimes. We homeschooled. And when I was done with my school early or whatever, I could go on the project with him. And in my youth, when we're there at the project working, anytime like dad got impatient or just even being on the job, there was always this drive to prove that I can do something that makes dad sit up and notice. Right. And then if he didn't, I would get angry inside. And it was that image of dad doesn't notice my work and my work doesn't care. It's not meaningful to him. He doesn't care about it. Right. I can remember a time I was probably 13. My older brother would have been 3 or 4 years older than me. He's 3.5 years older than me. So I don't remember if he was 16 or 17 at the time, but we were helping dad re-roof a house and a garage, and we were on the garage part. Dad had to go to a meeting because he was also a pastor and he was going to be gone for a couple of hours, or maybe it was an hour or something. I don't remember. And we were supposed to finish tearing off the garage shingles and then put the tar paper on. And I just remember thinking, let's get it done before dad gets back. My brother was way more laid back and chilled, and he just kind of he liked to sing and goof off as we did our work. And he was more meticulous, and I wanted to get it done, and it would be, look what we got done for you, dad. But in that process, there were some wrinkles in the tar paper. My brother was frustrated with me. We were upset at each other. And when dad came back and climbed up the ladder, the first thing he noticed was all the wrinkles. Like, oh, boys, we can't have all these wrinkles. And again, that message of like, it doesn't matter that you got this whole garage the tar paper done in that time, you messed up again. It's not good enough. And so that was my childhood wound, is the message that I have nothing of value to add and to bring to the table. That hung with me for years. And it wasn't until I was 19 that I began exploring this with a counselor. And I write about that more in the book, Live Free. But there's an aspect of that even after finding healing and coming to a place where I can think of dad in the garage and I don't get a tight chest. I don't feel grief. I don't feel bitterness. As a father now of 6 kids and 3 boys who are 13, 12, and I'm sorry, 12, 11, and 7. And then we have 3 girls below that, 5, 2, and newborn. I can imagine, like, I've probably done something like that already because dad was probably busy. He was probably already out there looking for something, and he had no clue that me telling him about this chair was a momentous moment in my life. And so there's a lot of grace for that. However, I have found, even in my adult life, even after working through pain and forgiving dad of that event, even though he didn't mean to do any harm or whatever, um, I still can tend to, like, when I'm in a meeting with the team, I serve on the leadership team of our church. And when I'm in a meeting, the times I get most worked up is when things are happening that make me once again feel like I don't have anything of value to bring, because that taps back into a wound from my childhood. And that is the exile part. We don't want the exile part to show itself. We're trying to hide that in many ways. And Julie Slatery refers to the public self and the private self, and how we learn early on in life that there are parts of ourselves that the public will not accept, and there are parts of ourselves that they will accept. And so we learn to put our best foot forward. And that's another way of talking about this. Or, putting that fig leaf. We're going to hide the shame that we feel, the pain that we feel, or the sense of nakedness. And that is the manager. The manager does not want the exile to be seen or known. This is the part of us that works hard to keep looking okay. It's the perfectionist, the religious overachiever, the ambitious worker who just can't quit. That's me. Like, trying to accomplish things and show that I can do something of value. Like, that's what I tended to lean into. That's what I still, to this day, when I'm not functioning in a healthy way, when I slide into unhealth or dysfunction, I'm driven to get things done to show that I have what it takes, that I am someone who has something of value to offer. The manager part is the one that will do whatever it takes for people to like them. It hates failure. It hates weakness. But deep down inside, the manager is scared of being truly known. This, for me, was in my adult life, has been working hard and accomplishing things. In my youth, it was my speed. Like, people liked me because I was fast. I could beat anybody. In my young adult life, it was my ability to lead worship, and people really enjoyed my worship, leading the times when I would lead people in worship. And so those were the things that made me feel accepted, made me feel better. And it's like, I do have something of value to bring. But then when somebody else who was actually faster than me would come along, like, it would tear me apart. And I would have such a competitive drive that if I did not win or win the race or whatever, like, that was all consuming for me. Or if somebody else came along who could actually play guitar better than me, or had a better voice, or just overall led worship better than me, like, and people raved about them, then I felt this jealousy, and it was as though, like, I needed the attention of being this good worship leader in order to feel good. But the moment somebody else comes along who's also a good worship leader, then I start to feel that exile rise up, as though I don't have anything of value to bring. My work doesn't have meaning and purpose. And in recent years, there was a period where I went through a health condition. We're coming up on the 2-year mark. It was February of 24, and basically everything that I was doing, I stopped cold for about 6 weeks. But then even after that 6-week period, I just slowly started doing some things again. And even to this day, I'm not quite doing everything that I was doing, or at least at the pace that I was doing it. So not accomplishing as much or as fast as I once was. And in that, there was about a 5 to 6 month period where I wasn't really doing my normal stuff. And I just felt totally lost, but even more, a bunch of emotional junk started rising up. And that exile started finding its place. And I entered into a very dark moment of life. And it has been the last year and a half has been finding healing, kind of working through that process, realizing even after having worked with my counselor addressing father wounds, even after finding freedom from pornography in my youth, like here again, I had slipped into this way of functioning out of the manager in order to hold the exile at bay. But here's the thing. Not even the manager can hide the wounds of our past. There will be things that happen in life that cause those wounds to surface. And when the manager can't keep the problem at bay, the firefighter jumps in. And during that season of life, when I had basically stopped everything that I found purpose and sense of meaning in. And all of a sudden, I started dealing with temptation to look at porn and go to unwanted sexual behavior in a way that I hadn't. It's not that I just hadn't gotten into porn for 10 years. Like I genuinely hadn't felt tempted to look at porn in the better part of 10 years. 10 years would have been what, 2014? So I don't remember exactly. We were living over in Asia at the time. Like I'm sure there were temptations here and there, but there was no strong pull. And all of a sudden here I was facing that all again. And when the firefighter self is the part of us that is willing to go to sin because that'll numb the pain. So the manager is not working, and now I'm willing to compromise and go to sin. In my book, I use the story of Saul, when he was this guy that he came from the tribe of Benjamin. It was the least of all the tribes of Israel. Well, when it comes time to crown him king, he's found in the luggage area. He's ashamed, he's scared, he's whatever. Obviously the text doesn't tell us exactly what's going on there, but it's this picture. He's running and hiding, and everybody brings him out and says, "Hail Saul, king of Israel," or "Hail King Saul." I'm not quoting it verbatim, but he became this person that all the people wanted. And then Saul goes on, and he's this valiant king, and he expands the borders of Israel and so forth. Well, then there's this time when the Philistines are descending on Israel, and all the men are running. And think that picture. So instead of them running to the luggage to drag him out, "We want you," and bringing Saul into the center. Well, now all those men are running away from him. They're scared. And so Saul goes up to offer the sacrifice, because they weren't supposed to go into war without Samuel offering the sacrifice to God first. And Saul, the king of Israel, had been specifically told to wait until Samuel comes to make the sacrifice. Saul goes ahead and offers the sacrifice instead of Samuel because he wasn't coming. And the text says specifically, he saw that the people were scattering. And so he's trying to maintain that control. Well, as a result, Saul was willing to enter into sin. It would cost him the kingdom. His line would not continue on. And because he was trying to keep that control. And that's what happens with us when the manager can't control things anymore. And when that exile and the shame begins to rise up, then we're at the very least tempted, but that's when we find ourselves struggling with habitual sin, it's that firefighter part that's like the manager's not doing it anymore. Our true self is the calm, wise, compassionate core of who we are, the version of us that reflects the image of God. That is who we are truly at our core. And the only way to get back there, or to get to this place where we are calm, we're wise, compassionate, where we reflect the image of God, we are bearing the fruit of the Spirit. The only way to get there is by allowing Jesus to come and heal the exile and heal that wounded part. And on one hand, that may look like a deep surgery sometime if you've never done this work, and finding what is that core wound from your childhood. Or for me in adulthood, when I'm going through something again and realizing I've leaned into my manager so far, then it's going to be kind of this, yeah, in one sense, there is a bit of surgery, like understanding, okay, what were you living from? Like, why were you working so much? Or why, you know, understanding my story, what is making me feel like I don't have anything of value to bring. But on the other hand, in this stage of my life, it's also the theme that I sensed heading into this year is rebuilding quiet. And that's kind of how it is for me. It's like there's these reminders and these truths to come back to, that they're just a place of quiet, a quieted center of something I was working with my counselor. I have, here we are almost 2 years later from that incident, and I find myself taking on or involved in a lot of things that I love to do again. And yet I'm scared. Like, I don't want that. Like, did being overworked trigger the health issues that I went through? And am I like, why am I working so much? I love the work that I'm doing. Is it because I'm finding an identity in it or whatever? And he asked me, he was like, it's okay to enjoy work. It's okay. Just don't be doing it because you feel like that proves you have something of value. And if it is, like, if you are doing it because you think that gives you something of value, then that would be something to explore, be curious about. Why do I think I don't have value without it? Our value comes not in what we can do and what we have to offer, but our value comes in whose we are. Purpose derives from whose we are, that we are children of God. And I think that's why a Sabbath rest can actually be really valuable for us, because it challenges, can you sit for a day without accomplishing anything? And are you at peace with yourself and with God? Oh, you're behind on things? Why does that bother you? For me, it bothers me because I tend to feel like I'm a failure. And there's a sense in which that's good, right? I have responsibilities. I need to get things done. I can't just kick them down the road. But it's also a check of, am I finding identity? Do I feel like I don't have any sense of worth and significance unless I'm on top of things? Well, taking Sunday off and just resting and sleeping and hanging out with family or friends, worshiping, just being, that can kind of be a reset moment of like, hey, or even the pace of life. Like, you have these dreams, Asher, that you want to accomplish. Well, are you willing for them to take a year to 2 to 5 in order to come to fruition? Because you have 6 children, a lovely wife, and a local community that you're investing in, and you can't be working 10 to 12 hours a day nonstop and properly caring for family and interacting with people in a healthy way. And so what is driving you? Is there a drivenness behind your work? Because if it's not calm and compassionate, functioning from a place of gentleness and peace, if it doesn't reflect the image of God, then it's not who God made me to be, and something else is driving it. And part of becoming a whole and healthy human being is understanding what is at the bottom of our unhealth so that we can bring Jesus into it and experience healing. So, the questions that I have for you in light of this is, can you identify the three parts inside yourself? Do you see for instance, the firefighter? Maybe that's like, well, yeah, I'm a part of this community that's because I go to porn or other unwanted sexual sin. But maybe it's something else, something sinful, something is unhealthy. And it could be substance abuse. You're going to a substance abuse, or maybe it's even more dramatic than that. There's anger, like you get in these fits of rage. Oh, that might be the firefighter's part, trying to seize control. When you go to porn or unwanted sexual behavior, what are you looking for? Are you looking for stress relief? Are you looking for escape? It's just you're feeling too overwhelmed by life and decisions and you're not sure what to do that. So you're just wanting escape. Are you looking to feel something positive? There's a bunch of negative emotions you feel and you just want something positive. Are you looking for excitement? A sense of purpose? I think a lack of purpose will often manifest itself in the fact that we go to things looking for excitement. How do you manage your image? For me, it's accomplishing things. What are you doing that help you manage your image? Being curious about that. Why is that? Why do you do that thing? What message are you believing about yourself? What pain or message from your childhood do you not want others to see or know about? Take some time and reflect on those things. Write them down in your journal, because that will help you. When we see these aspects of our story, don't sit here feeling judgmental about yourself. Feel curious, because they're going to tell you as you identify what's going on in your story, and as you bring Jesus into that, and also people, like one of a common thing, and this is for myself as well, when someone is struggling with pornography, a common thing people are feeling is isolation. And so yes, Jesus needs to come into the situation to heal the pain from the message or the action that has been given to you in childhood. But you also have to risk opening up to people and building relationships, because that's also a part of healing. And so as we experience healing, then we all of a sudden discover like the pull to pornography, the pull to whatever sinful behavior we're struggling with. That pull almost goes away completely. And so you're never going to judge the sin out of you, but you can understand what's at the bottom of it and let Jesus and his way come and heal that. I say Jesus and his way because he has designed relationships and community to be a way that is also healing for our souls. So anyways, I would, obviously these are very private questions, but if you care to, you can just share, how does this land on you? How does it impact you as you reflect on your own story?